greatest concern for the Afghan presidential elections in Afghanistan is security. The past elections, especially 2009 and 2010 elections, showed us some very clear evidence of how insecurity affect people's turnout, and therefore the lessons that we've learned shows that we need to start preparing for the security of the election way ahead of the election. We have a year ahead of us, and there are some preparations on the way, but security and continued terrorist attacks on civilian population and their threat and intimidation campaign is going to remain one of the major challenges and concern of this Afghan elections. The greatest challenge the way ahead is the electoral reform process itself. There's a number of areas in the electoral process that need to be reformed. The very hard-won lessons that Afghans have learned from 2009-2010 election is to make sure that there is an independent, impartial electoral institution in place, and therefore regulatory framework, the laws and other regulations that are going to formulate the way forward for the election and manage the electoral process and need to be reformed. There are draft bills submitted to Parliament. Currently, one of our challenges is that it moves slower. The level of confidence on independent election commission is lower, and that's a challenge how to both the credibility of the institution, but also build a high degree of confidence into the institution. And that comes through the process of appointment of the impartial chairman of the Independent Election Commission and the rest of the institutions itself, and also the formulation and establishment of the Election Complaint Commission. Now, the Election Complaint Commission and its setup is going to remain one of our major challenge, because the government is reluctant to go for a semi-judicial institution. However, political parties, civil society and others are actively engaged in promoting a draft bill or an amendment to the draft bill where it can establish mechanisms for a permanent, independent, impartial institution of elections, both complaint and also election commission that will manage the elections. In this entire process, while Afghans are continually engaging in trying to fight for a better democratic process where the election will take them a step further to institutionalization of democracy. In this way, and in this path, Afghans do expect the international partners to not let them alone. They cannot be neutral in this process, because promoting principles of a free and fair election, providing or helping Afghans to achieve a process where the credibility and legitimacy of their next administration is at a higher level, helping them to make this political transition that is so unique in their past or in their recent history, that for the first time a president will hand over the power and authority to the next president through democratic means, and therefore Afghanistan needs and requires to walk in this very peaceful path of transition of power. And in this path, Afghans need not to be left alone. The expectation on the values and principles of this election, standards of this election, need to be promoted by our international partners, and therefore democratic voices need to be consistently supported through right messaging, through moral support, and therefore to help creating a level playing field in a situation where the forces of conservatism, forces that pushes the country back to the past, are much more dominant and visible. The democratic forces requires their international supporters to stand with them. But there are many hopes that makes me and a lot of Afghans optimistic about the future. Specifically about the election, Afghanistan is a very different place today. We see many more political parties engaged in the political process very actively. We do see parties coming together, promoting a charter of democracy, promoting electoral reform. Afghan civil society is very openly and very outspoken, and are very outspoken about electoral reform, about the next presidential election. This time around, unlike the past four elections that we had in Afghanistan, the debate about the election is not just within the very small circles of the political elite. It has started almost 2 years after the election, and it includes different segments of society. It's a very lively debate that discourse in public, through media, and through their face-to-face personal discussion and debate. There is no dinner table or lunch table in Afghanistan today across the country where election would not be one of the main topics of the discussion, and therefore it indicates that the general public in Afghanistan, despite the difficulties, despite the terrorist attacks, despite the continued threat that the terrorists are posing to the ordinary Afghan, to the average Afghan, their life, their well-being, and their political participation, people are eager and committed to push for this democratic process to succeed and the election to happen, and therefore that presents a very, very clear sign of hope.